to see. She's 6.5 weeks old, so starting this weekend, they'll be on just kibble, no more mom's milk.
She's beautiful.
And I do have quite the crew here, like I said, with the 9. So hopefully everyone stays sleeping. The little tan guy there, his name is Sarge, and we just got a grant to purchase him for a veteran. So he'll be specifically trained for a veteran. And there's the rest of them, I think, are all asleep on dog beds. So it's the quietest it's been in weeks here. But if you don't mind, we'll get rolling. I will start my screen here. I can figure out. Can you all see the lacrosse player?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. There we go. So that's actually me in college. I went to Long Island University on scholarship for track and field and lacrosse, track and field and field hockey originally. That's me as the goalie here in field hockey. And I switched that over to field hockey and lacrosse because I really love the team environment of it. But toward the end of graduation, cost of living is obviously not something you dream of when you're in school. And living in New York City was extremely expensive. So I joined the Army. So this is me here with a couple of my battle buddies in basic training. And then I was a Humvee driver for a military police unit. So unfortunately, I was injured in 2006. So here was actually a separate injury. I had crushed my arm. So I lost 2 fingers on that hand. I don't know if you can see it while we're doing screen sharing, but I'm missing 2 little nubs there. And then I ended up with a skull fracture, facial fractures, abdominal damage, and a spinal cord injury, and ended up losing both of my legs as well. So as Deb said, I spent 5 years in the hospitals, so 1.5 years on active duty rehabbing and 3.5 more in the VA. That's what my cool x-ray looks like as an amputee. So I don't know if you are all aware of this, but you have approximately 206 bones in your body. You may have extra sesamoids and things like that, but with all of my missing parts, I only have 150 bones left, and I broke 56 of them. So in 2016, after 8 years of limb salvage, I did end up losing both of my legs. So I'm now a bilateral amputee. But with Moxie at my side, I got back into adaptive sports. So I learned to surf, and I competed for the US team at the World Championships in 2020. Moxie was not legally allowed to surf with me in the competition, but she enjoys it anyway. She's also watched over my side while I competed for the Army in multiple sports. So I did swimming, track and field, sitting volleyball, and I forget what else, honestly, but I stay so busy. So that's my Moxie spotting me in the gym. She's trained to do things like fetch my wheelchair, push the handicap access buttons to open doors. She can open regular doors as well. She can turn on and off the lights and call 911 on the house phone, and open and close the doors to go get the neighbors if I need help. Due to the skull fractures, I am epileptic now. So I have a seizure disorder as well as missing all the other parts. This is us at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. So I was fortunate enough to do a rotation there training, as well as I spent the summer leading up to the 2020 games during the pandemic at the Olympic Training Center in Chula Vista, California, which is where all the fair weather sports are, like track and field, tennis, rugby, I think volleyballs or beach volleyballs there. But in, I want to say 2010, 2011, I learned to play sled hockey. And I trained on my own for about 6 months with a couple of the local high school players here. So they taught me all the rules and all the basics of hockey and tactics. And I actually made the team here when I still had legs and limb salvage. I think you could see me and Moxie off to the side. But I made the team on my first try after only been training for 6 months. And I've been on the team now for 11 years. So it's an amazing group of girls. Because the dogs were on the roster when we won the inaugural Women's World Championships, the dogs got medals as well. So Moxie's got quite the medal stack turned in now too. This is from our last Worlds that was in Ostrava, Czech Republic. I think I froze. Oh, there we go. So as a double amputee, Moxie gets to come out during practice. She does the handshake lineups, and she loves to play defense and bite my elbows and chase me around. She absolutely loves 5Ks. She loves to race anytime. And she'll dance at the starting line with all the elite runners with their watch, and she'll take off for about a quarter of a mile and then let me catch up. But she doesn't run much anymore. She's about to be 14, so she's officially retired. But she's always loved kayaking, the outdoors, whatever I'm up to, she's up for it. So she's been my battle buddy for a number of years since I got hurt, really. And so in the military, the working dogs outranked the handler by 1. And I was a sergeant in the Army, so Moxie's officially a staff sergeant in the Army. But sorry, this is just a little educational piece about the difference between service dogs, therapy dogs, and emotional support animals. I don't know how much you're all familiar with, but service dogs have public access rights, but they have to be task trained to mitigate the person's disability. So just because I'm disabled, if I have a dog with me, it does not make them a service dog. And if a dog is task trained, but you don't have a qualifying disability, again, they're still not a service dog. So they have to really be trained specifically tailored to you for your disability. Now, therapy dog is actually for a community group. You could have a therapy dog at the library for like a kids literacy program, or they go to nursing homes and hospitals. They even work in jails and correctional facilities. But therapy dogs don't have access rights. So if I have one of my certified therapy dogs through our program and I come to your library, that doesn't mean they have to be allowed in. It's up to every single facility and every time. So they may come in this week, but they may not come in next week. It's your choice, because therapy dogs don't have rights. Emotional support animals are designed to live with a person with a disability, but only to live with you. They don't have public access rights at all. And they actually, as of February 1st last year, banned them from flying because they're not fully trained. They may have some training, but there's no test that they have to take to become an ESA. So it really affects how they work in public. So only service dogs trained to mitigate a specific disability are allowed in public, or allowed anywhere that pets don't go. The other two can go anywhere that a pet goes, like Petco or any pet stores. So as Deborah said, I founded Mission Working Dogs in 2020 after training dogs on my own for 9 years. We train service dogs for both PTSD and mobility impairments, things like cerebral palsy or paralysis or amputations. And we do the therapy dogs as well. Most of ours are in mental health clinics or in schools. So this is one little puppy, and we teach them through imprinting. So they really do copy the big dogs. So this is Moxie teaching Miller to ride on the escalator and to go out on the airplane. We do airport training with the dogs so that they're all set and accustomed to that. Because if any of you have traveled, traveling is stressful enough on its own, rather than trying to figure out how to travel with a dog as well. So Miller's in Arkansas. This is Louie. Louie's a school therapy dog in Missouri. And so he went to a Bruins game and got to meet the mascot. If you've seen most dogs in public, they often panic a little bit when they see anybody that looks different, even if it's a person with a hat and sunglasses. So if you can imagine their reactions to mascots and funny costumes. So here at Mission Working Dogs, we do have a number of Halloween costumes for our volunteers to wear. And they'll work on kind of startling the dogs or walking by funny and things like that, so that the dogs get used to everything. So this is more of Louie in training, checking himself out in the mirror down at the bottom and attending hockey games at the top. That's him at his school now in Missouri. And he works at the high school of their school district. And the superintendent was so thrilled with him and the impact he's had at the school that they got a second dog. This is Darcy Joe, and she's at the elementary school in their district. So it is an FAA violation for them to ride in the seat. This is just posed for a photo op. The dog can't fly in the seat because if they hit turbulence, they'll go over the seat and hit the person in front of you. This is Hershey. If you notice her name, it's the pronouns her and she. and she was assigned to a female veteran with PTSD. So she's doing awesome, and her veteran went back to college. This is Grace. She's a therapy dog at Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, or CHOP. This is Lucky Tim. He was actually my first special needs puppy, and he's here in Maine. So if you see in the pictures, his front leg was deformed. He ended up needing full amputation of that. So now he's a tripod. He's missing the whole arm and the shoulder blade so that he didn't worry about the lack of muscles around his shoulder. So this was him as he grew and visiting school regularly, checking out hockey and volunteering at the local nursing home. He actually was also trained to perform in the play Annie as Sandy. So he acted in the play and had to learn all his scenes and where to go on stage and when to run across and when to wait. So that was a lot of fun. This is him training in Lowe's and at the doctor's office. So any therapy dog or service dog, when they're waiting, has to be under and out of the way and out of sight. So that's him under the chair there. And then they have to be able to maintain a downstay for up to 20 feet, or even if you went around out of sight. Basically, the point of the testing is safety and control. So no matter what you say to do, he's got to do it. This is some of the other ones. So the lighter colored golden that's with Moxie is Doug, and he's my new service dog. And the baby pic in the pictures is Gidget. She's a yellow lab, and she's assigned to a veteran from New Hampshire. So this was them in training together. Doug and Gidget were in the same graduating class. So practicing their unders and out of sight, and even at the restaurant and riding in elevators. This is the public access test for service dogs. I won't make you read it all now. I'll just run through it quick. But they have to start with a controlled unload from the vehicle. So if you pull up to Walmart with your service dog, you don't open the door and they don't bail out through the parking lot and disappear. They have to wait until you give permission and then hop down and wait for you. They have to be able to walk through the parking lot calmly and safely and not be afraid of cars that come by. They have to pass controlled through the doorway. So while Walmart has the big automatic doors, other places or restaurants you might go to have smaller normal doors. So you can't necessarily fit side by side going through. So the dog can be taught to go ahead of you and wait inside, or can be taught to follow and not push. Sorry, the thing is in the way from what I can read. I'm trying to read it really quick, but I believe it's just healing through the aisles in the store. My bar is across the top of my number 4 bullet, but they have to be able to walk appropriately on whichever side you need. So for me, I personally prefer my dog walk on the left, but we have a mom whose disabled daughter is in a wheelchair, and she pushes the chair with her left, so the dog is trained to walk on the right. They also have to have a recall off leash. So whether you're walking and accidentally drop the leash or have to leave them somewhere and then call them to you, the dog should be able to do both of those things. And I've seen it many times. I have a friend with a service dog from an accredited school in Massachusetts, and the dog actually, she flipped her wheelchair over. So she fell down, she let go of the leash, and the dog took off. So me as a double amputee, I'm chasing this dog 6 houses down the street, and it didn't listen to me at all because I'm not its person. But she was stuck and I had to go get him. And so for me, off-leash recall is extremely important. Sitting on command, of course, they have to be obedient, but more than that, on the test, you actually place a plate of food at their feet. I apologize, I stutter from my brain injury, so it trips me up every once in a while. But for Moxie's test, she had bacon and eggs at her feet. And for Douglas's, he had chicken wings from Buffalo Wild Wings, chicken wings and fries. Gidget was very obsessed with fries, so that was her true temptation, but she ignored them. She was very upset when the housekeeping staff at the restaurant threw them away. But they also have to sit and lay down while a shopping cart passes within 6 feet. They have to ignore another dog as it passes within 6 feet. They have to do those things as well with a downstay, not just a sit. And then noise distraction. So we often throw things during the test, a clipboard or a plate or tray, and they can have a mild startle reaction, but they're not allowed to bark or get upset or get too scared. Again, in the restaurant, they should be under the table, out of sight, out of the way. The greatest compliment a service dog handler can get is when you leave the restaurant and the people there say, "Oh my God, I had no idea there was a dog here." Because you shouldn't. They shouldn't be an obtrusive thing in the environment. They should be out of the way and quiet. And then this is a separate one off leash where you drop it. The other one was a recall where you intentionally make them stay at the end of the aisle. The dog also has to tolerate being with another person. This was actually Lucky's hardest thing on the test. He failed this 12 times over in practice before he finally passed the test, because a lot of times they get so bonded to their person that they don't like it when you leave. But if they have to go get spayed or neutered or any kind of veterinary care that they're out of your sight, it's important that they can handle that without extra stress or anything like that. And it's also important that, say, like, I get hurt a lot playing hockey, so I have regular MRIs. And so the dog doesn't go in the MRI tube with me. They have to be able to wait with the tech or wait somewhere else in the waiting room and be okay with that. The next one is a controlled exit and load. So again, safely out the door, through the parking lot, into the vehicle. And then the team relationship. So we really want to see that there's a good fit and a good bond. If you're a person that likes to hike, we don't want to give you a couch potato kind of dog. And the same the other way. If you're a person that plays video games and doesn't do sports or big activities, we're not going to give you a high drive dog that wants to run all day. You know, it's not going to be a good fit for your life and a good match to work. This is one of our groups through graduation. The little puppy is Libby, or Lady Liberty. She is a year-old now and still in training. And then you've got my Moxie there with me. Doug, while he was in training with another volunteer. Lucky is the 3-legged school therapy dog. And then that's Gidget with her veteran Matt. This is Douglas working on access buttons. So they're trained to go ahead and push the button for me so that if I'm in my wheelchair, he can do it and then I don't have to worry about it. That was still in training, so you can see that he kind of jumped and was a goofball. But now that he's certified, I can let him go and he'll run up and push the button, no problem. This is Storm with one of our volunteers, kind of teaching him how to do it. He was only about 5 months old there in the video. Oops. This is them doing stairs as well. So we certainly want the dog well in control so they're not going to drag anyone down the stairs. So this is a pretty heavy flight with Doug on it, and he's actually off leash here doing everything on command with me. If you have your volume on, you can hear the volunteer tell Storm to take steps. So up and down under control with the handler, so that if you need time to get your balance, the dog will only step on command. This is our group training in Lowe's. And so this is Monty, Storm, Ranger, Belle, Abigail, and Grace. And Ranger has since graduated. Monty actually failed out of the program. So not every dog makes the cut, but they try hard. But that's Monty in the bathroom. And the person said, "I have to go to the bathroom. Can you hold the dog?" And I said, "Well, actually, it's really great training to take him with you." She was like, "What? How do I go to the bathroom with a dog?" But if he's a service dog, he needs to be able to do that. And so maneuvering into the small stall and being patient, not crawling under the wall and disappearing, but also all the electronic components in there. The automatic sink is different for the dogs. The hand dryers are extremely different with all the noise and the blowing air, because most of us don't have that at home. So a lot of the dogs get startled and actually need extra bathroom training. This is Buddy and his veteran. So working on his down stays, and then the biggest thing when you're working on a stay, in the beginning, you make eye contact and you keep telling the dog to stay, but as they build up to it, you get further and further away, and then you start to do it with your back turned. So originally, Buddy, as soon as he turned his back, would run right to his dad, but he figured it out fast. And then working on in the grocery store, ignoring food. They can never, ever, ever eat anything off the floor. And that's partially a safety reason, because if you go anywhere, you don't know what it is or how long it's been there. So whether it's something that's toxic to them, like a pill or a sugar-free piece of gum, or something as simple as a moldy French fry that nobody should eat, you don't want the dogs to touch it. So we teach them to leave it. And the treats on the floor with Buddy there are actually bacon. So this is Bentley from our class. Bentley's especially funny because while he loves the treats, he's terrified to step on them. So he tries to tiptoe through them. But this is some of our other kids working on focus and different surfaces. While they don't necessarily need to skateboard or climb on shelving, it's great to expose them to everything you can think of, because the shelving that Doug is laying on there is almost the same dimensions as the grates in the city, in New York City over the subways. So being able to walk comfortably on that and into the ski lodge at Lost Valley and the other places, they all have those kind of grates for the sand and snow to fall through. So making them comfortable and confident on all surfaces is important. They're storm practicing. The fish tanks actually have blowers in them. So the blower motor makes a lot of noise and stuff along the floor. And then doing his unders and climbing on the stairs with the weird bumps on them. This is Storm working off leash. So they say turn left and turn right, and they'll tell him when to stop. We teach the dogs left and right so that you can turn more easily without having to trip over them. Under the law adjustment in 2010, the dog is allowed to work off leash as long as they're fully verbally controlled. So as long as he totally listens, he's allowed to be off leash. They did change that because some handlers have disabilities such as mine with my fingers. When I lost my fingers, I had my other wrist reconstructed as well. So I didn't have use of my hands. Or if you think like a quadriplegic may not have use of their hands or good use of their hands. So it's important for the dog to be able to be off leash as long as they're trained enough. This is Libby working through her tasks. Miss Libby has a very serious attitude and transitioned from service training to therapy training because she loves special needs kids. If we take her to the Life Center or John F. Murphy homes, she will walk off leash perfectly with any one of the kids. But if I have her on leash or anybody else, she pulls all the time. But she's so funny. So this is some of the guys from the first class. So Buddy with his veteran, Doug with me, Gidget with her veteran, and then we had another civilian in the group as well. So we do train for civilians and military. So that's Dolly with her person. This is what we call our bucket brigade. So across the top is Grace, Abby, Belle, and Ranger. And we do have pictures of them as they grew up, standing on the buckets and then carrying the buckets. So it's fun to see them grow. Ranger all the way on the end is now almost 90 pounds. He's the dad of our current litter. This is our breakdown right now. We do have some of our own breeding dogs in the program, but also PTSD, service, medical alert, and then we've trained some for medical facilities. This is our upcoming campus plan. The only change on here that I'll point out quick is that it's not a loop walkway in the middle now. It's a straight one to cut on paving costs. But we have a training center building, which has indoor and outdoor training areas and play areas, as well as a welcoming area for our clients to stay and hang out. An overnight kennel facility for during team training weeks, and then cabins. So that if you became disabled, we would spend 2 years training the dog, and you would come stay in a cabin for 2 weeks, and it's a fully wheelchair accessible cabin. You would stay with us for 2 weeks and learn how to use the dog and learn their language and bond with them before we send you off in the world. And you would have to take the test together with them at the end to certify as a team. So this is what the main center looks like from the front and back. And the fence in the bottom one that's all the way to the left will actually connect to the kennel facility. But there's some day kennels in here and dry storage and stuff as well. And then our kennel building. We don't have to worry about the fences being too tall because one, the dogs are trained to jump over them, but also told that they're not allowed to. So Moxie was specially trained to jump the 4-foot fence at my house because if we were in the backyard and I needed help, she was trained how to get out and go get help. So we do teach them that and allow them to do that, but only when they have permission. We kind of have the same rule here at the house where they're allowed on the couch after their first birthday, but only with permission. So they'll sit there and they'll look at me and they'll look at the couch and then they look back at me and that's them asking. So I can tell them, yes, you have permission to go up on the couch. And then if you want to reach out anyway, this is ways to follow me online or email us. Our other updated email, since we are a nonprofit, is info@missionworkingdogs.org. So this has been updated since our Gmail. I apologize. I'll fix that for next time. But aside from that, I will stop sharing now. And if you want to go ahead and ask questions or anything, you're welcome to.
Thank you, Christy. That was amazing.
It was kind of a lot at once, so feel free to ask questions.
Great.
Also, no question is out of bounds here tonight. When I first had my legs amputated and came home, we were sitting at the beach at camp, and my grandmother grabbed her chair and scooted all the way over to me. She says, I have so many questions. I've never met anyone that was disabled. So how do you do this? And how do you do that? And like, honestly, I change my socks once a month. And she was appalled, but I don't have feet. So, I mean, it's like changing the socks on a mannequin. It's not like you got sweaty and gross in there. So no question is out of bounds.
Well, thank you. I'll wait to see if anybody unmutes or puts anything in the chat. I have 2 to start with. Maybe we can kick it off that way. Just wondering, I think you may have mentioned it, but I may not have caught it. Can a single dog have multiple certifications?
Yes. So Doug is trained for me for PTSD as well as mobility assistance. And dogs can be trained for multiple things. It's less common if it's like an alert dog or guide dog, because those are such life crucial tasks.
Mm-hmm.
They're generally just trained in one thing. So a person can have more than one service dog. So like a diabetic, for example, may have a diabetic alert dog, but then as their diabetes progresses, if it's uncontrolled and they lose a foot, they may also need an assistance dog. So then they could have the diabetic alert and an assistance dog.
Okay.
So it's not really common, but it is legal.
Yeah. And then so does a single dog though, can a single dog have multiple certifications? Not
Yes.
multiple. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So like Doug is PTSD service as well as mobility assistance.
Got it. All right.
It's not very common though for a service dog to be a breeding dog or for a service dog to also be a therapy dog. Although I have such a great bond with my dogs that I do allow them, the command is go say hi.
Yeah.
So if we're out in public and it's someone that clearly needs a little love, I'll tell the dog they can go say hi.
That's great. My second question is, how does Moxie make phone calls? You mentioned 911.
Yeah, so it's an old school phone with an actual receiver and cord, and the bigger buttons. Not to insult anyone, but a lot of times the older folks have phones with larger buttons and they're almost an inch square.
Okay.
So she was trained to push the receiver off and then punch the buttons. And then we were flagged at dispatch that if a dog called from that number, they knew what it was for. Because otherwise you think a dog calls and it's a prank. So they knew that it was for me if she called.
That's amazing. I love it. All right. Leslie is asking, is the Golden Retriever the most common breed of dog for service?
It's kind of a toss-up between Goldens and Labs. They're people pleasers and they're highly trainable. So where a poodle is super, super smart, they're often very stubborn. And German Shepherds used to be the most common, but now they get what's called degenerative myelopathy. So their back end weakens faster. So most of them have to retire around like age 8 or 9. I know a number of Great Danes that work again as well. They're great service dogs, but they often don't live as long. So it's a hard one.
Mm-hmm.
And then the smaller dogs that do live longer can't reach to do half the tasks. Like I can't give a dachshund a bag of groceries to bring in, but I can have Doug do it.
Yes.
Doug is actually trained to, the post office in Lewiston is not particularly accessible. So they know him there. So he'll go in and put his paws up on the counter and they hand him the mail and we train him to look for crosswalks. So he'll wait for cars and then come across to the car.
Oh, I love it. Doug is asking, how do you assess a dog's suitability for training?
We do a number of different temperament tests. And if we're working with a local breeder, we actually start at 2 and 3 weeks old. So one test we do is to hold them by their armpits. And if you can see, she's totally relaxed.
Right? Sure is.
So she doesn't care or fuss about that. She's not too stubborn. and then on their back as babies to see if they're submissive and willing to be trained. A lot of times when you do this with a puppy, they flail and fuss and don't want to do anything. So a lot of times those ones may be great pets, but they also may be way too stubborn to train. So it's a careful balance. And then when we work with those breeders, when we work with a breeder, we usually try to visit the dog every single week, because the dog we pick out at 2 weeks may not have the same personality at 4 and 5 weeks. So you'll see them as they grow. The last litter, when we picked Sarge and Hope out, we had picked a different female originally. Sarge was phenomenal from the get-go and stayed consistent every week. But the female we picked ended up being the whiner of the bunch. So you don't really want a dog that's overly vocal anyway, but also if they're constantly complaining and upset, then they probably don't want to work either.
Right. All
So
right.
a lot of temperament testing goes into it. And then as they age, we do different milestones too, to make sure that they're keeping up with commands, that they housebreak on a normal schedule, and that doesn't take too long. And then just their reactions to different things. Like we said, Monty failed out. He got to the point where he did not like working, and that's okay. Not everybody makes the cut. And then little Grace, the tan one, switched from therapy to service. She was working in a doctor's office and she was so bored,
No.
but they started giving her tasks to do and she loves it. So she'll deliver stuff from the front desk to the back offices. And, you know, if you drop a pen off the counter, she'll pick it up and hand it back. So she was retrained and she'll graduate hopefully in the fall as a service dog.
These dogs are so lucky that you're in tune, right? That you're in tune with what they want and need.
It's got to be the right fit for everybody.
Yeah. Melanie is asking, do you find that some individuals abuse the status of service dogs by putting she's got it in quote, service dog and training code on their personal dogs? And what do you have to say about that?
There are so many fake dogs out there, and it ruins the reputation for the others. And even if a person is disabled and the dog helps with some things, if it doesn't follow all the laws and the etiquette and the norms for service dogs, it gives everybody such a bad reputation. We had a lady register to assist with our class as a volunteer, and she showed up to the class with a dog that had a vest on that said service dog. And so I said, "Oh, what does your service dog do?" And she said, "Oh, nothing. She's too stubborn." Then it's not a service dog. Even if you have a disability, that it has to do tasks that actually help you, you know, not just fetch things for the fun of it. If I can fetch it myself, it has to help to mitigate your disability.
That's right.
But yeah, the fakes are awful. And usually you can tell. We were in Walmart one day with our whole class and we had somebody with a dog in a shopping cart, which is an actual law. Like it's against the law. And they said, "Well, what's the difference between your kid's poopy diaper and their dog's poopy feet?" And I said, "Well, the difference is if you don't have a dog and you get sick in 3 weeks or 2 weeks and your doctor does all these tests and can't figure out what's wrong with you, you probably have a dog parasite, but you don't have a dog. So they're not going to know to test for that." So there's a lot of different zoonotic stuff that's transmissible that you certainly don't want to catch.
Right. I appreciate you showing that chart, the chart between the service therapy and what's the third one? Anyways,
Emotional support.
emotional support, because it's really helpful for the rest of us to really kind of get our heads wrapped around that there are those 3 categories. You know, I think we just sort of clump them and it's not the case.
Yeah, I think any animal lover or pet lover, your pets are always emotional support animals, or you probably
That's
wouldn't
right.
have them.
That's
But
right.
it's a different level of training and different expectations.
Leslie is saying or asking, first of all, you are incredibly brave and an inspiration. I'm wondering if you experience pain in your legs now, or are you mainly pain-free?
Mainly pain-free. I have what's called phantom sensations. I don't get a ton of phantom nerve pain, but phantom sensations. So all of the time, my feet feel like they're that pins and needles asleep feeling. But the thing that trips me up, and I have to laugh, you have to laugh at yourself. The dogs will run full bore and crash into my prosthetics. And that's got to hurt them because the carbon fiber and the metal is hard as a rock, but I'm fine. And then like 30 seconds later, I fall down because the nerve sensations finally caught up with my body and the muscles give out from it.
Wow.
So even though they didn't do me any damage. It's enough to jar the nerves, and then the nerves will shut down other things.
Oh,
It's kind of a weird reaction.
yeah. These are great questions. Please keep them up in the chat. Doug is asking, how many dogs does your organization train each year?
It varies year to year. We have 31 currently in training or in our program. And that goes ages 14 weeks to, I think our oldest is a 6-year-old that's still in training. But the new puppies, the new litter don't count yet. And we just received 2 new applicants that I'm going to start working with their dogs next week. So there's quite an approval process between the application, background check. If it's for a service dog, then we need the doctor's information. If you want us to train your dog, then we need all your veterinary information, and we talk to your vet to make sure the dog is willing and able to work. And then we do a temperament test with your dog. So if Joanne came and wanted her dog to be a therapy dog, we would bring it out and do some testing and see if it was suitable to go to work.
Excellent. Sarah's asking, are service dogs provided only to veterans, and is there a fee for them? Also, do you accept donations?
Yeah, so we are one of the only agencies in Maine that do service dogs for civilians and veterans. We do have some grants through different veteran organizations to help cover the cost for the veterans, but we do ask folks to help us fundraise $4,000 for their training. They get about $12,000 worth of training if you said that it was $30 an hour for their classes, which is cheaper than the going rate in the state. Going rate in the state of Maine is $50 an hour for a personal trainer. So if we said, we ask you to help fundraise 4,000, and honestly, a lot of people, I don't expect to cut a check for that. So we do say like a bottle drive. We did a bottle drive at a local restaurant, and it was towards one candidate's dog, and we raised $1,200 that day. So we can do fundraisers like that to keep it low cost to the individual. We just want you to have a little bit of stake in the game so that you're invested in the program. We do take donations and things on our webpage, which is missionworkingdogs.org. There's a support us tab, and from there you can actually buy the Lucky Book as well, but you can shop our Amazon and Chewy wish lists, and you can make donations right through the page.
Excellent. Leslie is asking, if you had to pick one, what personality trait would you say was the most important one in your successful recovery from such serious injuries?
Everybody I know says being stubborn. I've been stubborn since I was a little kid. I had the terrible twos from age 2 to age 5. And rumor has it, my kindergarten teacher told my parents that that would pay off someday. And I think it has. Originally, when I got hurt, the doctors went through a 3-page list of things they said I would never do again. Especially being epileptic, cooking is a hazard because if I have a seizure, I could get burned. I could burn the house down. Same goes for bathing. I could drown in the shower because if I pass out and plug the drain. There's so many things that they just really didn't think I would ever do again, like walking and running and swimming and all of that. And so a veteran at Togus, a Vietnam vet, kind of dragged me out and said, he kept bugging me physical therapy. Come to this event, come to that event, come with me. And I finally said, dude, if I come, will you stop bothering me? So I went to this thing, and it was called a VA Sun in the Fun Day, or Fun in the Sun, sorry, Fun in the Sun Day. And we learned to water ski. So after they told me that I can't walk and I can't swim, and we went water skiing, and they made me go first, and I didn't fall. So I was able to water ski. And I said, well, if I can do that, what else can I do? And so I've literally done everything the doctors said I would never do. I even ride a regular 2-wheeled bike now. I just can't wiggle my toes. I can live with that.
Mm-hmm. Are you seeing Leslie's response? Love that, with 3 exclamation points. Fantastic.
Awesome. It does make a difference, and having a good support system as well. They send me back on orders every once in a while in the Army and go to different bases to mentor the newly injured. And then even working at the local veterans home up here, I was in to visit a different patient, and they said, we've got this guy, would you just talk to him? Of course, we're going to help everybody. And he was a logger. He's a veteran, but he became a logger in Maine. Then he got a weird little cut on his ankle, and it got infected. So he lost his leg below the knee, and he was at the nursing home rehab, and the infection spread, and he lost his leg above the knee. So he never even learned to walk on a below knee prosthetic, and now he'd lost even more of his leg. And he was completely non-compliant with physical therapy, just didn't want to do anything. And I walked in, and they rolled him out from his room in his wheelchair. And he said, "Holy shit, you lost both." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "And you can walk?" Yeah. So 30 days later, he was discharged walking.
Oh, yay. What a great story.
Sometimes that's all it takes, though, just to see that it can be done.
Right.
You know, he didn't need to see me running. He just had to see me functioning. And then he was like, "All right, then I'm gonna do it."
I'm just pausing because I'm wondering if anybody wants to unmute and ask your question. I don't see any others in the chat right now, but we'll wait a minute.
If you know anyone that's an amputee, then they should not have pain from their prosthetic. If they do, that means it doesn't fit right. So encourage them to talk to their prosthetist. I talk to people all the time that are limping or walking funny, and it's funny, there's 4 little bolts on the ankle of the prosthetic, and they work like the bolts on your Christmas tree stand to straighten the tree. And so changing the depths of the spikes on there adjust the alignment. And honestly, like a half a turn on the screw could change how it feels on my knee completely.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, such subtle things.
Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat, and all right. Well,
If anybody has a question that they're afraid to ask, I did put our email in the chat. So you can always email, you'll always get me through that email. All of our people are volunteers, but most of them have real jobs. So usually I'm the one answering social media and the email. So if you're ever, just too shy to ask, feel free to send it that way.
that sounds great, Christy. I so appreciate you being with us tonight. I want to thank you for your service, and thank you for your sacrifice, and thank you for this amazing work you're doing. You're getting claps, you're getting thank yous, you're getting lots of great comments. So thank you for joining us, and best of luck with your new building. And I'm sure you'll be on the news again. We'll follow you.
Channel 6 said they'll come back out when the main building opens. The first building is under construction now, but 10 buildings, it's a $1.1 million project, and we've only raised about 300,000 so far. So we've got a long way to go.
Well,
I think
yeah.
just asked about schools.
Yes.
And we, so if you just email me, we do visit schools regularly. I went to Coney like 2 weeks ago, and I forget where I'm going tomorrow, but it's, education, outreach, puppy therapy and love that way. There's a million things we can do.
Terrific. All right, so I'm going to just conclude by saying this concludes our presentation for this evening, and all of us at Vose Library, thank you for attending our Vose virtual series, and we hope that you'll spread the word and also join us on Wednesday, January 26th, when Jamie Novak, author of Keep This, Toss That, Zooms with us and offers many organizational tips for the new year. Good night, everybody. Be well and stay healthy. Take care.
Deborah, the baby, just started crying and whimpering down there. They're pretty cute.